Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Alrighty, what do you say we dig into the goods? Because I love what we're talking about this week, about the influence of influence and how we're all under some kind of influence, and everything is influential whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we pretend it's there or it's not. The fact is that we are all influenced, and we have to look at these things if we're going to get to the place of understanding and controlling a little bit better how we react. Honestly, that's at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, right? Because we can't control everything. But what we can control is the way that we react to certain things. We can all do a better job. Can I just get some agreement out of that? Margot knows, so does Vanessa. Hi guys, I'm glad you're here. So yesterday we were talking about, if you remember, we were talking about our inner dialogues. And boy, oh boy, was that just a juicy subject. Hey, Mary and Tanya. We talked about how our self-talk is an incredibly huge aspect of what influences in our lives. And today, because it's Wise Women's Wednesday, we're going to go up another level on this, because this is what wise women do. And we also want to make sure that our self-talk is empowering. It is empowering, and we don't want to go to this place of make-believe, smoke and mirrors, and pretend everything's okay. That's not what I mean about self-empowering self-talk, or I guess empowering self-talk would be the word. And the reason that I'm saying that is because I think sometimes we get confused with all of this, and especially when we're saying I am statements, and we're saying all these things because we're setting up what it is that we want. And I get that, but we also have to have a slight eye toward what the reality is. I mean, if you're saying I'm living in this mansion, and really you're living in a studio apartment, and it's just full of, squalor and newspapers piled high and dirty dishes in the sink, you're not living that lifestyle. And there's no amount of self-talk that's going to get you there if you're not currently taking care of what you have. That's for sure one of those things. But you remember a few weeks ago, we did the whole, hi, Barry, there's Lynn. We did the whole thing on how this idea of fake it till you make it is complete bunk. Remember that? We talked about that, because you can't do that. You can't pretend and then have that be. It doesn't work that way. That's not how it is. It requires action. It requires some thought out plans. It requires a little bit more for you than just pretending that it's there. We know that that's not the case. Hey there, Corliss. But so I want to say this emphatically, right? I want to say this emphatically. Self-talk isn't about creating a reality with no foundation. Okay? It's not baseless. It's not baseless. It's not telling yourself that. I think about this one all the time, because you think about all the squirrely, well, what about this? And well, what about that? And let's just put that all to rest here. It's not being 60 years old and saying, I'm going to go try out for prima ballerina at the American Ballet Theater. I mean, that's just deception and delusion, right? That's not at all based on reality. We have to base things on reality a little bit. And then we also need to believe that we can get a step further. I mean, maybe you can't be an American Ballet Theater prima donna, but certainly if you were 60 years old and had a real love and desire for dancing, ballet even, you will find an outlet. Just might not be that theater. So we have to look at this because self-talk isn't lying or hyperbolic cosplay. It's not. It's based on what your current situation is and trying to find the best in your situation. And it's not also just seeing what you want to see and pretending the other stuff doesn't exist. This is this is sort of like seeing a leak underneath your sink. And because you don't want to deal with it and you don't want to call the plumber, you just let it go. And then suddenly, there you are. You've got this big mess that needs to be dealt with and walls torn out and mold everywhere and remediate. So you see where I'm going with all of this? We can't ignore it because we don't want to deal with it, but we also can't pretend that it doesn't exist. So if we can see the truth in ourselves and in our circumstances, we are one step ahead. But that doesn't mean that we have to go all negative and just say, and see, this is what I'm telling you. This is why my life is just blah, blah, blah. Well, here we go. Here we go. Because I think we can bring this whole self-talk thing into a place of true understanding and also reality enough that we can also see what's next. So that we don't feel like, there is no hope here, but we instead say, okay, so here's what I'm dealing with now. How are we going to build this? What do you think of that idea? So what I know is that when we know that we're doing our best with what we have and we're giving it everything that we've got, well, we're striving for excellence. We're not striving for perfection. We're striving for excellence. And yet we know that we are going to make mistakes. Hello, welcome to the human race. This is how it works. We make mistakes. And you know what? Other people around us will too. We have to hold ourselves and others to the same standards. Have you noticed that sometimes we don't? We give ourselves a pass. We don't even see it because we're being blind to it. But other people, they do one little thing wrong. We're all over them like white on rice. That's not good. So we just have to understand reality of mistakes being made by ourselves and others around us. So positive, healthy self-talk understands that that's the ebb and flow of the way life is. And it's not an even keel as much as we would like it to be. So here's what that means. And I've got 5 things for you on this. The first one is that focus on the positive, but don't ignore the negative. It doesn't mean that your focus needs to be on the negative stuff. It just needs to be acknowledging that it's there. There's a big difference in what I'm saying here because we have to focus on the things that we want, on the positive things that we want. And that because the focus is going to give us the flow and is going to give us the energy of what it is that we're trying to produce here. Whether it's you're painting a room or whatever your situation is, that focus has got to be on the positive thing. It's absolutely critical. Number 2 is to be optimistic, but also with an eye toward the big picture. What is the big picture analysis? Anyone here ever fix up a house? Anyone? Anyone here ever think, oh, well, the old character, the lovely house, and you're doing all this work, and then you find you got a really big problem behind a wall, or you find that you wanted to tear down a wall and you're going to need a structural beam or some such thing. It's never as it seems. There's always something to come a calling. But that big picture analysis helps us to understand what's going on here. I am super that way. As a matter of fact, I think I've shared this with you before. I can't do spreadsheets and do a good job analyzing what's up on the spreadsheet. I need to see everything. I need a kind of a summary of what's going on. And then I can look at it. I can quickly analyze it. And that will help us to make decisions about things that we're doing as a company. And also, with my personal finances and with what it is, what Mark and I are trying to do with our future and everything else. So it's a huge, big, bloody deal. It really is. It's a huge deal to be able to see details as well as the big picture and to stay optimistic in the whole process of the whole thing. Number 3 is to not focus on your failure, but allow them to give you lessons. And we talk about that because the next one, of course, is going to be using the experience file, because the experience file captures these moments of experience and lessons so that we don't have to learn them over again. Have you noticed that you learn the same lessons over and over again because you haven't learned from the last one? That's what we need to that's how we have to do it. That is the way that it's done. And when we take those experiences, when we shake that box and we say, this is the thing that I need to learn from this experience, then that's when we get to take the experience, put it in the experience file as a lesson learned, and get rid of the rest of the baggage. Because with that also comes a whole bunch of negativity, a whole bunch of stuff that we say about ourselves that we can get pretty ugly when we're talking about ourselves. So absolutely critical, absolutely important is to 1, 2, 3, 4 is use the experience file to capture those important lessons that you've learned. You don't want to repeat it again. Number 5, though, is analysis is better than paralysis. And get this. Analysis doesn't mean criticism. Did you hear me? It doesn't. You don't need any more criticism, do you? I don't. I know you don't. We don't need criticism. What we need to do is analyze, though. And analyzing takes and pulls the plug from the emotion. It doesn't put us down. It doesn't do any of that. It just says, okay, what happened here? It's main facts. That's it. It's it. Think about it. You don't have to weep over this. You don't have to pound your chest and say, I'm no good. I can't, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do any of that. You know what you need to do? All you need to do is analyze what the heck is going on. What happened? What happened? Don't beat yourself up. Don't be highly critical. Just look at what happened. But there's also this thing of how your inner dialogue can affect your outer dialogue, how you speak. Have you noticed this? This one really hit me hard because I've done this. Do you ever call yourself a name? Anybody here? I want you to give me an honest answer on this. Put your pinkies up if you have. Because the reason I'm saying this is I want you to hear this for a minute. This is so critical. This is so important. When you call yourself names out loud, when you call yourself or I am so stupid, or what a moron, I'm an idiot. When you do this, when you're putting yourself down like this, do you know that other people are looking at you in that same negative light that you just put out? They see you the way that you are saying those words about yourself. And I'm going to just tell you right now, I know you, and I know that's not true. Here you are, spending your time with me on this Wednesday afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Here you are saying these horrible things about yourself, and I know they're not true. Can we agree that they're not true? Can we agree that this is the kind of self-talk that needs to stop? Especially you're pronouncing it inside of your head, and then you pronounce it on the outside, and you're saying this to the world. You're making this pronouncement about yourself that is simply not true. Noreen, you are beautiful. So there, that's what I have to say about you. We have to be careful. Our words build our lives. Our words define us. Are you really ready to define your life as such? Are you ready to do that to yourself? Are you ready to allow this to be gone? Are you ready to say that's enough? Put that in the experience file. And you know what the lesson learned on all of this is? It hasn't done a thing for me, and it never will. Not only that, but it makes other people think negatively about me too. Let's not do that with ourselves. When we do that, it is tearing down the very fabric of your life. And I'm telling you right now that no, Noreen, there is no try. You just do, okay? You've got this. You've got this. That is enough, Helen says. That is enough. You know why? Because you're enough. You're enough. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to believe old tapes and lies and old words and all of that. Let's have some analysis here. What good has that ever done for you? How has that ever helped you or anyone in your life? Think about that for a second. Because when we start thinking about how these put downs come out, who else is listening? Do you think our children hear that? Huh? Do you think so? I know mine did. I know my kids heard it. And I'll tell you what, there's a whole bunch of stuff. If I could go back and listen to what was going on when my children were little, a whole lot of stuff I would be saying a whole lot different. Because they pick it up, they're little sponges. And not only that, but our psyches pick this stuff up and believe these lies. Do you put yourself, use self-deprecating humor and sarcasm to cover up maybe some cynicism or some pessimism or even some outright hostility? I believe this is the result of unresolved trauma, and I think we all have it in some way or another, and I believe it lives in our bodies. I saw a really good quote, and I think it was right here in the Hot Melt Sprint or in the Hot Melt Sprint group of somebody talking about how that you don't allow trauma to live in your body. Enough is enough. That instead you take it out and you create music with it, or you use it for art. You use it as the energy that it is, but on something else, not on you. And I think it's really important that we draw the line and pull out the old stuff, because the old stuff has proven itself over and over again to not work. The old stuff has taken us backwards. It hasn't put us forward. Right on, Carol. She says, I used to, but when you learn better, you do better. She's right, 100%. So, what about putting down others? Anyone do that? Does it make you feel better? I mean, look, this is baseline, low vibe stuff. We've all done it. Come on. Makes us feel better. Well, at least I don't, It's tribal. It's like one-upsmanship and we've got it. They don't. There's a lot of that going on right now in this world, which is really awful and very sad. But I'm going to tell you right now, we have control over these words, what we say to ourselves and what we say about ourselves to others, and even adding others into the mix and putting them down and having this sarcastic type of sense of humor and, self-deprecating humor that doesn't prove itself to be funny at all. So it's time to call this out. And I'm calling you out. I'm calling me out. I'm calling us all out to say, let's speak to each other with love and kindness and care and genuine beauty, Instead of talking to somebody and putting them down or, saying anything about them or whatever, think of like 3 things that you can say super positive about them. Even if it's something like, yeah, I like your earlobes, simply because you don't have anything good to say. Because I will tell you, there's a lot of people in this world, they're going to rub you the wrong way. And guess what? You're going to rub them the wrong way too. We just do that. That's how it is with people. All people don't like you or me. I know, because I've gotten the hate mail before. Plenty. It's the way it is. I can't fix that. I think we should stop, wearing, I saw this today too, stop wearing the sticker across your forehead that says, I want you to like me, and put it on the mirror. I want you to like yourself. I want you to like yourself, because this is what it's all about. So we need to start cultivating good self-talk, and we need to start cultivating talk that is allowed about others and ourselves in a way that is constructive and building up. That's one level up. That is the rising tide lifting all the boats. That is what we're called to do if we're going to live at the high vibe with the high vibe tribe. Remember, we talked about that probably 6 months ago. So number 1 is, this is a good one. Y'all are going to recognize this one. Stop ruminating. Anybody do this? Where something negative happens, somebody says something and it's just awful, and you relive it over and over and over again in your head. I should have said this. I should have said that. They were so mean. They were so awful. And you tell the story over and over again. You wouldn't believe what happened. Like I told the story, remember about my nasty neighbor? Oh, I told that story so many times. And it finally got to the place where I stopped going by that house. Then I started thinking the other day, when Leah was here with Dana and taking the dogs for a walk all the way around the pond, a lake, I stopped taking the dog all the way around the lake because I didn't want to pass his house. Think about that. That was the influence that I allowed to influence my behavior. That's crazy. We got to stop that. So we do not, ruminating is, you know what ruminating means? It's like it's chewing it up, thinking about it and thinking about it, swallowing it, bringing it back up and chewing it again. Just the way a cow's rumen works, which means they keep digesting, chewing their cud and swallowing it and bringing it back up and chewing it some more. That's what ruminating means. We don't need to ruminate. We're not cows. We just don't need to ruminate. And I'll tell you, there's a big difference too, by the way, between ruminating and going over and over and over and over and over again, that whole negativity versus saying, how can I solve this? Because how can I solve this is a whole lot of different thinking than going over it and over it and over it again. And have you noticed that when you do that, sometimes the details change a little bit and sometimes it's more exaggerated than you thought it was? And we overthink it and magnify the nastiness of the whole thing. Have you noticed that? I have. I mean, that's the honest answer to that is that, yeah, that happens. Yikes. It does. That's what that's about. And, we don't have to make molehills, mountains out of molehills, do we? Nope, we don't. So we talked about that too a few weeks ago. It's so funny. This all comes full circle. Number 2 is, though, you got to speak to yourself. And we talked about that yesterday, of course. You need to speak out loud to yourself. Use your name. Say it out loud. Even do it in the mirror. But also do it in the third person. Just like, Leanne likes to. Leanne is positive. Your name, using your name and speaking about yourself that way is really empowering. It's also empowering to say I am statements, of course. But Brene Brown, I thought this was so cool. When she has negative thoughts come up, she calls them gremlins. And you know what that does? I thought about this for a minute, is like, ooh, that's really powerful, because we are not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. We're not our emotions. It's something that we do. You got that? Because when people start saying, I am emotional, I am this. No, you are a woman who has emotions, right? You're a human being. You have emotions. We have these things because we're humans, but we are not that. When we define ourselves as emotional, we're putting this big blanket statement over us that we're just completely this emotional blobby mess. It's not true. We are human beings. We have emotions, we have feelings, and we have thoughts. We are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings, and we are not our emotions. Okay? Let's put a point on that end of that sentence. So that's really important. That is really important to delineate those things. And stop speaking to yourself, by the way, poorly of others and poorly of yourself. Like I said, we extend goodwill to others when we don't. And when we're extending that goodwill, it's just going to come back to us. It's really, really critical. That's really, really important, because it gives you the power over your tongue, and it gives you your power over your thoughts. Because at that point, when you say off limits, I'm not going to go negative. I'm not going to go and crucify this guy or this gal and just be awful. Instead, I'm going to figure out something nice to say about them. Like I said, maybe it's just their earlobes. I don't care. But if we start doing that and we start elevating our thoughts like that and just say, I'm just not going to go there, then that's going to come back to us. It's just, you reap what you sow. That's how it works. That's how it all works. But I said number 3. Number 4 is listen up. Listen to yourself. Listen to others. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for listening, or I don't think we give ourselves enough listening. We don't have a very good, the art of listening isn't very impactful to us at this point anyway. I know it isn't for me. Because when we really listen, we're not just waiting for the person to pause so we can interject something else. We're not, and even with ourselves, sometimes we like to cover up with a lot of chatter. Have you ever been one of those people to say, I just need some noise on? I just need to have the TV on or the music on or whatever. What does that do? It takes you out of your present. It takes you out of your task sometimes. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'll put some music on and do some things. But there's times too for silence where you can be alone with your thoughts and you can think things through and you can listen to how you're responding to whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you need that, I'll tell you what, I'll put the Motown on and dance my moneymaker off when I'm, cleaning toilets and doing anything else. I'm going to buzz through the house and get it clean. But when it comes to really sitting with myself and having to listen, it's a good thing because that's where the ideas come from. And that's also the ideas of, you know what, I'm ruminating right now. This needs to go to the experience file. It gives us an important time to really analyze what the heck our thoughts are about. And if we do that with others and then turn around and do that with ourselves, we're going to become amazing listeners. And everybody wants to be friends with a good listener. Don't you? I know I do. Number 5 is to take a time out. Okay, so here's the thing. Have you ever noticed anyone that knee-jerk reactions never go well? You just, it's a text message. It's a messenger message. It's a post that you made. It is a comment that you made on a social media thing. It is a whole lot of things. And what it is also going to be something that you get trolled over. It's going to be something that somebody's feelings are going to get hurt or angry toward you or whatever. That's just in the social media realm. But what about with your relationships? Maybe it's something that you need to put in a container and deal with it once you've thought it all the way through. If we're going to be under the influence of influence, which we all are, then we need to create safety nets for ourselves and for others and for the people we love. We need to, when it's time, we need to say, you know what? I don't want to talk about this right now because I don't trust what I would say next. I need a little time out here. I need to put that in a container and sit on it for a minute, okay? Think about that. It's destructive when we knee-jerk. It's never gone well for me. I cannot think of one time where a knee-jerk, response has ever done anything but negative, have a negative consequence. What about you? You got to look at that stuff. And I'm going to tell you right now that wise women build one another up. I see this all the time in the Hot Melt Sprint group. They use wise words and sincere encouragement. And they do it to themselves too. They congratulate themselves on doing a good job. I like that, by the way. I think it's massively important. But talking to yourself as someone you love and someone you cherish, that takes some work to do, especially if you're not used to it. And especially if you're used to saying, taking yourself into a dressing room and just shredding yourself in front of the mirror to make your friend laugh, which I used to do, like I shared yesterday. Or, saying I'm an idiot, I'm so stupid, or whatever it is that you're saying about yourself. It's going to take a minute to get to this place of speaking to yourself as someone that you love and cherish. I'm going to bet you right now, Noreen and everybody else who pinkied up on that and said, that's me, I did that. Would you do this to your child? Would you say this to your elderly parent who, maybe is losing a little bit of their mobility and need more help than before? Would you do that? Or a friend who made a big, big mistake? Would you say you're an idiot? I know you wouldn't. Let's start building our lives instead on grace and acceptance, all the ugliness and all the flaws and all the stuff that come along with it. Because this is how we love one another and this is how we love ourselves. And when we start doing that, can you imagine? being under the influence of so much love that your words are just like a balm to a hungry soul, just like a balm to a wounded soul. That can be you for your own self. That can be you for the rest of this world. And let me just take a look around. This world is hurting. We don't need more sarcasm. We don't need more ugliness. We don't need more of that. We need so much more of this love, encouragement, and support that we're talking about here. And it all starts with you and your self-words. What influence do you want to be under? Do you want to be under the influence of love or the influence of a harsh critique? Do you want to be under the influence of encouragement and support? Or do you want to be under the influence of sarcasm and cutting? I know who you are. You're a wise woman. That's why you're here. That's why we're talking about these things. And it's time for you to step up into this and really take a good analysis. What's going on with your words? Because they have the ability to build up like nothing else. And I know you've got it in you. We all do. Let's do this together. What do you think? That's what I say. Yay, pinkies up. So thank you so much for joining me today. What a fun time it was. Peace be with you. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.